The principles of Freemasonry, its emphasis on morality, fraternity, and self-improvement, were the philosophical ideals of Enlightenment thinkers like Franklin.
Benjamin Franklin, born in 1706 in Boston, is remembered as a man of boundless energy, ingenuity, and vision. His achievements include the invention of the lightning rod, the establishment of America's first subscription library, the creation of the first volunteer fire company, and, of course, his critical role as one of the architects of the United States. Beyond his public and scientific endeavors, Franklin was also a dedicated Freemason, a fraternity whose values resonated profoundly with his personal philosophy. His Masonic career spanned more than 6 decades, during which he rose to high office in both American and European lodges. Freemasonry, with its emphasis on morality, equality, self-improvement, and service, provided Franklin with a framework that guided much of his work and shaped his worldview. Good evening, and welcome to tonight's presentation From the Quarries, an archive of Masonic lore.
The fundamental principles of Freemasonry are those of brotherly love, relief, and truth, which Franklin embraced in both his private and public life.
The 18th century, often referred to as the Age of Enlightenment, was a time of great intellectual ferment. It was an era that sought to prioritize reason, scientific inquiry, and the betterment of humanity.
The Enlightenment was a period where the ideals of liberty, reason, and fraternity flourished, coinciding with the expansion of Freemasonry as an institution of moral and intellectual development.
Freemasonry, which emerged as a prominent force during this period, embodied many of these ideals. It became a haven for men of intellect and character, offering a forum for philosophical discourse, moral instruction, and civic engagement. For Franklin, whose life was already marked by an insatiable curiosity and a passion for learning, Freemasonry was a natural fit. It provided not only camaraderie and inspiration, but also a means to translate lofty ideals into practical action. To understand the profound influence of Freemasonry on Benjamin Franklin's life, we must first examine the circumstances of his early years and the events that led to his initiation into the craft. Born on January 17th, 1706 in Boston, Massachusetts, Franklin was the 15th of 17 children in a modest family of candle and soap makers. Franklin's formal education was brief. He attended school for only 2 years before financial constraints forced him to leave. Despite this, he became a voracious reader and self-taught intellectual, developing an appreciation for literature, science, and philosophy. At the age of 12, he was apprenticed to his older brother, James Franklin, a printer and publisher. It was in this role that Franklin first demonstrated his exceptional talents as a writer and thinker. Through his contributions to the New England Courant, a newspaper run by his brother, Franklin began to develop the sharp wit and incisive commentary that would characterize his later works. At the age of 17, Franklin left Boston and eventually settled in Philadelphia, where he established himself as a printer and publisher. It was during this period, sometime in 1730 or 1731, that Franklin was initiated into Freemasonry at St. John's Lodge in Philadelphia. Although the exact date of his initiation remains uncertain, it is widely believed to have occurred in February of one of those years. This marked the beginning of a lifelong association with the craft, one that would profoundly influence his personal philosophy and public endeavours. Interestingly, Franklin's relationship with Freemasonry prior to his initiation was somewhat unconventional. In his publication, the Pennsylvania Gazette, he had made light-hearted jokes about the fraternity, a move that some historians interpret as a strategic attempt to garner the attention and favour of the local lodge.
Through his writings in the Pennsylvania Gazette, Franklin helped demystify Freemasonry and align it with the principles of education and enlightenment.
By doing so, Franklin may have sought to establish himself as a figure of note within Philadelphia's social and intellectual circles before formally applying for membership. Once initiated, however, Franklin's tone toward Freemasonry shifted dramatically. He began to publish numerous positive articles about the fraternity, extolling its virtues and emphasizing its commitment to moral and social improvement.
In my youth, I could see that Masonry had much to offer, both morally and intellectually, a true brotherhood that transcended all worldly distinctions.
Franklin's initiation into Freemasonry signified his entry into a network of individuals dedicated to ethical development and civic responsibility.
St. John's Lodge, the lodge into which Franklin was initiated, was one of the earliest Masonic lodges in America. It was part of a broader movement during the early 18th century that saw Freemasonry spreading from Europe to the American colonies. Freemasonry provided its members with a unique combination of intellectual fellowship, moral instruction, and social networking opportunities, making it particularly appealing to ambitious and intellectually curious individuals like Franklin. The values of Freemasonry, brotherhood, charity, equality, and the pursuit of moral and intellectual improvement, resonated deeply with Franklin's own beliefs. Throughout his life, he exemplified the Masonic ideal of self-improvement, striving to better himself and his community through education, innovation, and public service. Freemasonry provided him with a framework within which he could channel his ambitions and intellect toward the betterment of society, a theme that would recur throughout his career. Benjamin Franklin's rise within the ranks of Freemasonry reflected both his dedication to the craft and his remarkable talents for leadership and organization. In an era when advancement within Masonic lodges often required years of service and recognition, Franklin quickly distinguished himself as a figure of exceptional ability and commitment.
Franklin's rapid rise within Masonic ranks demonstrates his natural aptitude for leadership and his alignment with the fraternity's core principles of moral and social progress.
Within a year of his initiation into St. John's Lodge in 1730 or 1731, Franklin had already taken on significant responsibilities. He was appointed to the committee tasked with drafting the bylaws of the lodge, a key role that demonstrated both his understanding of Masonic principles and his aptitude for governance. This early appointment marked the beginning of his active participation in the administrative and organizational aspects of the fraternity, which would become a hallmark of his Masonic career. In 1732, Franklin was elected junior warden of the Provincial Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania. This was a significant achievement, as it placed him in a position of authority within the larger Masonic structure of the region. The Provincial Grand Lodge, subordinate to the Grand Lodge of England, was responsible for overseeing the activities of local lodges in Pennsylvania, and Franklin's appointment to this role signaled his growing prominence within the fraternity.
Franklin's election as junior warden reflected not only his commitment but also his recognition as a leader within the Masonic community.
Franklin's rapid ascent continued in 1734, when he was appointed Grand Master of the Provincial Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania. This appointment was particularly noteworthy given Franklin's relatively short tenure as a Mason at that point. His selection as Grand Master reflects the high regard in which he was held by his fellow Masons, who recognized his leadership skills, intellectual acumen, and dedication to the principles of Freemasonry. As Grand Master, Franklin played a pivotal role in promoting the growth and development of the fraternity in Pennsylvania, solidifying its place as a cornerstone of civic and social life in the colony.
The brethren of this lodge have chosen me to lead, not because of my seniority, but because of my commitment to the principles we cherish.
In addition to his role as Grand Master, Franklin served as Secretary of St. John's Lodge from 1735 to 1738. This position required meticulous record-keeping and correspondence, skills that Franklin had honed through his work as a printer and publisher. One of Franklin's most significant accomplishments during this period was his publication of the Constitutions of the Freemasons in 1734, a reprint of James Anderson's Constitutions. This was the first Masonic book ever printed in America, and it played a crucial role in spreading Masonic ideas and principles throughout the colonies.
Freemasonry being a craft of enlightenment, I deemed it essential to provide American brethren with the very constitution that guided our brethren in Europe.
By printing the Constitutions, Franklin solidified Freemasonry's intellectual presence in the colonies and demonstrated its compatibility with Enlightenment ideals.
Benjamin Franklin's contributions to Masonic literature stand as some of the most enduring aspects of his involvement in the craft. As a skilled printer, writer, and editor, Franklin understood the power of the written word to disseminate ideas and foster a shared sense of identity among Freemasons. Through his publications, Franklin not only provided practical resources for the fraternity, but also helped to articulate and promote its values, solidifying its place in the cultural and intellectual life of colonial America. One of Franklin's most significant contributions to Freemasonry was his publication of the Constitutions of the Freemasons in 1734. This work was a reprint of James Anderson's Constitutions, originally published in England in 1723, and it holds the distinction of being the first Masonic book ever printed in America. Anderson's Constitutions included a history of Freemasonry, as well as its rules, regulations, and charges. By reprinting this seminal text, Franklin made the principles of Freemasonry accessible to a wider audience and provided American Masons with a foundational document that connected them to the broader Masonic tradition. The significance of this publication cannot be overstated. At a time when Freemasonry was still relatively new in the American colonies, the Constitutions of the Freemasons served as both a practical guide and a symbol of the fraternity's legitimacy and continuity with its European roots. Franklin's decision to undertake this project reflected his belief in the importance of Freemasonry as a unifying force that could foster moral and intellectual growth. The book's impact was profound, helping to standardize Masonic practices across the colonies and providing a shared reference point for lodges. Franklin's role as a publisher also allowed him to use his newspaper, the Pennsylvania Gazette, to promote Masonic ideals. Following his initiation into Freemasonry, Franklin's tone in the Gazette shifted markedly. He began publishing articles that praised the fraternity and highlighted its emphasis on charity, brotherhood, and self-improvement.
Let us consider that we are all parts of one great whole, and let the good of the people be the ultimate law.
These writings not only enhanced the public image of Freemasonry, but also underscored Franklin's personal commitment to its principles. Through his newspaper, Franklin became one of the first American advocates of Freemasonry, helping to demystify the fraternity and emphasize its contributions to society. In addition to his direct publications, Franklin's involvement in the craft influenced his broader intellectual endeavors. His writing often reflected Masonic values, such as the pursuit of truth, the importance of ethical conduct, and the need for mutual support among individuals. For example, Franklin's Poor Richard's Almanac, one of his most famous works, contained numerous aphorisms and proverbs that align with Masonic teachings, including exhortations to industry, humility, and the betterment of society. While not explicitly Masonic, these writings reveal how deeply the principles of the craft were embedded in Franklin's worldview. Franklin's efforts to promote Masonic literature and ideals extended beyond his work as a printer. He also supported the creation of Masonic infrastructure in the colonies, including the construction of the first Masonic building in America in Philadelphia.
The construction of Masonic buildings during Franklin's time symbolized the fraternity's growing influence in civic life and its role in fostering community.
As a member of the committee overseeing this project, Franklin helped ensure that Freemasonry would have a physical space in which to flourish, further solidifying its presence in colonial society. Through his publications and related endeavors, Franklin demonstrated how Freemasonry could serve as both a personal philosophy and a public institution. His contributions to Masonic literature were not merely technical achievements, but also acts of cultural leadership that shaped the identity of Freemasonry in America. By providing Masons with the tools and texts they needed to thrive, Franklin laid the groundwork for the fraternity's expansion and enduring influence. Benjamin Franklin's public life demonstrated the alignment between Masonic principles and civic engagement. As a statesman, diplomat, inventor, and founder of key institutions, Franklin applied the values of Freemasonry: brotherhood, equality, self-improvement, and service to others across every facet of his career. His Masonic affiliations were not merely a private commitment, but a guiding philosophy that shaped his public actions, leaving an indelible mark on American society and the world. One of Franklin's most notable contributions to public life was his role in improving the civic infrastructure of Philadelphia. As a committed Freemason, Franklin believed in the importance of creating institutions that would serve the common good. Among his many achievements, he established the first subscription library in America, the Library Company of Philadelphia, which provided access to books and knowledge for all, not just the wealthy. This effort mirrored Masonic ideals of intellectual improvement and the pursuit of enlightenment. In 1736, Franklin founded the Union Fire Company, the first volunteer fire department in Philadelphia. This initiative demonstrated his belief in the Masonic principle of mutual aid, where individuals work together to protect and support their community. Similarly, his involvement in creating the American Philosophical Society in 1743 reflected Freemasonry's emphasis on scientific inquiry and the advancement of knowledge for the betterment of humanity. Franklin's Masonic values also extended to the physical spaces of the fraternity. He served on the committee for the construction of the first Masonic building in America, located in Philadelphia. According to Masonic tradition, Franklin and his fellow Masons also laid the cornerstone for the State House in Philadelphia, later known as Independence Hall, symbolically connecting the founding of the United States with the principles of Freemasonry.
The cornerstone we lay today is not just a foundation of stone, but of principles: liberty, equality, and fraternity.
Franklin's diplomatic career is perhaps the most striking example of how his Masonic values informed his public life. Appointed as a representative of the American colonies to Europe, Franklin used his Masonic connections to foster goodwill and build alliances, particularly in France, where Freemasonry was an influential social and intellectual network.
Masonry has opened the doors to friendships and alliances that serve the greater good, transcending national boundaries.
In 1777, Franklin joined the prestigious Lodge of the Nine Sisters, Loge des Neuf Sœurs, in Paris, a lodge known for its association with prominent intellectuals and supporters of the American Revolution. While in France, Franklin's Masonic affiliations facilitated his diplomatic efforts to secure French support for the American cause. His membership in the Lodge of the Nine Sisters allowed him to cultivate relationships with influential figures, including philosophers, scientists, and statesmen. Franklin's role in assisting the initiation of Voltaire into the Lodge in 1778 further solidified his reputation as a respected member of the fraternity and as a bridge between American and European intellectual traditions.
Voltaire's initiation, facilitated by Franklin, represented a convergence of Enlightenment thought and Masonic ideals.
Franklin's diplomatic success in France owed much to the Masonic principle of brotherhood. By emphasizing shared values and mutual respect, Franklin was able to build trust and cooperation between France and the fledgling United States. His efforts culminated in the Treaty of Alliance in 1778, which secured French military and financial support for the American Revolution. This alliance was instrumental in the eventual victory of the American colonies and the establishment of the United States as an independent nation. As one of the founding fathers, Franklin played a central role in the creation of the United States, and his Masonic principles are evident in the founding documents and institutions of the nation. The Declaration of Independence, which Franklin helped to draft, reflects Masonic ideals of liberty, equality, and the pursuit of happiness. The emphasis on individual rights and collective responsibility in the U.S. Constitution also aligns with Masonic teachings on the dignity of the individual and the importance of working together for the common good. Freemasonry's emphasis on morality and ethical conduct was a consistent theme in Franklin's political career. He famously wrote to his mother in 1738, reassuring her that Freemasons have no principles or practices that are inconsistent with religion and good manners. This statement highlights his belief in the compatibility of Masonic values with a virtuous and upright life. Franklin's commitment to these values was evident not only in his personal conduct, but also in his efforts to promote justice, education, and public welfare throughout his career. In his public life, Franklin exemplified the Masonic ideal of the moral architect, a person who seeks to build a better society through service, wisdom, and ethical conduct. His work as a diplomat, inventor, and statesman was deeply rooted in the principles he embraced as a Freemason. Whether founding institutions, forging international alliances, or contributing to the birth of a nation, Franklin consistently demonstrated a commitment to the betterment of humanity. Benjamin Franklin's life and career were deeply intertwined with the principles of Freemasonry, reflecting its emphasis on self-improvement, intellectual curiosity, and service to others. These Masonic values did not simply complement Franklin's personal philosophy. They were central to it, shaping his actions and guiding his decisions throughout his life. By examining how Franklin's beliefs aligned with Masonic ideals, we can better understand the profound influence of the craft on his enduring legacy. Freemasonry's foundational principle of self-improvement resonated strongly with Franklin, who dedicated his life to personal growth and intellectual advancement. As a young man, Franklin developed his famous 13 virtues, a system of moral discipline that bears striking similarities to Masonic teachings. These virtues, such as temperance, humility, and industry, aligned closely with the moral and ethical framework of the craft.
My Moral Perfection project was deeply influenced by the lessons learned in Masonry, a continual striving toward personal betterment.
Franklin's 13 virtues parallel the moral teachings of Freemasonry, emphasizing discipline, integrity, and the pursuit of perfection.
Franklin's commitment to lifelong learning was evident in his prolific contributions to science, literature, and philosophy. His inventions, such as the lightning rod and bifocal glasses, were not merely technical innovations, but also reflections of his desire to use knowledge for the betterment of society. Similarly, his founding of the Library Company of Philadelphia and the American Philosophical Society showcased his dedication to spreading knowledge and fostering intellectual growth, a pursuit that mirrors Freemasonry's emphasis on the Enlightenment ideals of reason and education. Freemasonry also emphasizes the importance of reflection and self-examination, values that Franklin embraced wholeheartedly. In his autobiography, Franklin described how he kept a daily journal to track his progress in living according to his virtues. This habit of introspection and self-assessment was a hallmark of his character, and a practice deeply rooted in Masonic traditions. One of the central tenets of Freemasonry is the principle of universal brotherhood, the idea that all men, regardless of social or economic status, are equals within the lodge. Franklin lived this ideal throughout his life, building relationships with individuals from all walks of life and treating them with respect and dignity. His Masonic membership provided him with a network of like-minded individuals who shared his commitment to equality and fraternity. Franklin's dedication to the principle of brotherhood extended beyond the confines of the lodge. As a diplomat, he worked tirelessly to foster cooperation and mutual understanding between nations, particularly during his time in France. His ability to build bridges between disparate groups, whether Masonic brethren, political allies, or international partners, actualized his belief in the power of unity and collaboration. Franklin's advocacy for equality was also evident in his later years, when he became an outspoken critic of slavery. As president of the Pennsylvania Society for Promoting the Abolition of Slavery, he worked to advance the cause of liberty and justice, embodying the Masonic commitment to the dignity and worth of every individual.
All men are created equal in the eyes of their Creator, and Masonry teaches us that all should be treated as brethren.
Franklin's late-life activism against slavery reflected his embrace of Freemasonry's ideals of universal brotherhood and human dignity.
Another cornerstone of Freemasonry is the principle of service to humanity, which Franklin exemplified in every aspect of his public life. From his contributions to civic infrastructure, such as founding fire companies and public hospitals, to his efforts to improve education and scientific understanding, Franklin consistently sought to use his talents for the benefit of others. Franklin's role in the founding of the United States was perhaps his most significant act of service. As a founding father, he helped draft the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution, documents that reflect the Masonic ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. His belief in the power of collective action and his vision for a just and equitable society were rooted in the principles he embraced as a Freemason. Freemasonry's use of symbols to convey moral and philosophical teachings found a natural affinity in Franklin's scientific and intellectual pursuits. The square and compasses, symbols of morality and guidance, reflected Franklin's methodical and principled approach to life. His writings often incorporated allegories and metaphors, a technique inspired by the symbolic language of Freemasonry. Moreover, Franklin's dedication to balance and harmony in all things resonated with Masonic ideals. Whether in his experiments with electricity, his political negotiations, or his personal relationships, Franklin sought to create order and coherence. Franklin's contemporaries recognized him as an exemplar of Masonic values. Near the end of his life, he was honored by his Pennsylvania brethren as an illustrious brother of distinguished merit, a title that acknowledged his extraordinary contributions to the craft and society. Count Mirabeau, the French revolutionary leader, eulogized Franklin as a philosopher and statesman who had advanced the cause of liberty and enlightenment, reflecting the highest ideals of Freemasonry. Franklin's legacy as a Freemason is not defined by his titles or offices, but by the way he lived his life, perfectly plumb, square, and level in his dealings with others. He embodied the virtues of humility, charity, and wisdom, leaving behind a legacy that continues to inspire Masons and non-Masons alike. Benjamin Franklin's legacy as a Freemason is as profound and enduring as his contributions to science, diplomacy, and the founding of the United States. His 6-decade association with Freemasonry not only elevated the fraternity in America and Europe, but also demonstrated how its principles could be applied to create a better society. Franklin's life exemplifies the highest ideals of Freemasonry, and his recognition within the craft reflects his extraordinary impact. Franklin's Masonic brethren recognized his commitment to the craft early in his life, as evidenced by his rapid ascent to the position of Grand Master of the Provincial Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania in 1734. By the end of his life, his peers referred to him as an illustrious brother, a title bestowed in recognition of his distinguished merit and his adherence to Masonic principles. This honor, not tied to any specific rank or degree, was a reflection of Franklin's exceptional character and his contributions to both the fraternity and society. In Philadelphia, Franklin became a symbol of the fraternity's moral and intellectual ideals. His leadership roles in local and provincial lodges demonstrated his dedication to advancing Freemasonry's mission, and his work as a writer and publisher ensured that its teachings would reach a broader audience. These efforts cemented his status as one of the most influential Masons of his time. Franklin's impact on Freemasonry extended far beyond the American colonies. In Europe, particularly in France, he was a highly respected figure within the Masonic community. His membership and leadership in the Lodge of the Nine Sisters, Loge des Neuf Sœurs, in Paris, exemplify his ability to unite Masonic ideals with diplomatic efforts. As the Lodge's master from 1779 to 1781, Franklin not only advanced the work of the fraternity, but also used it as a platform to strengthen ties between France and the United States during the American Revolution. Franklin's role in initiating the renowned philosopher Voltaire into Freemasonry further highlights his influence in European lodges. Voltaire's initiation in 1778, conducted with Franklin's assistance, was a historic event that brought together two of the Enlightenment's most prominent figures. This moment symbolized the intersection of Masonic values with the intellectual currents of the time, emphasizing the fraternity's commitment to reason, liberty, and human progress. His contributions were further recognized by French Masons when he was elected Venerable d'Honneur, Honorary Worshipful Master, of the respectable Lodge of St. John of Jerusalem in 1783. These honors reflected not only Franklin's high standing within Freemasonry, but also his role as a bridge between American and European Masonic traditions. Franklin's life and work are often interpreted through the lens of Masonic symbolism.
Franklin's life was a testament to the Masonic creed, living truly by the square and guiding himself with the compass.
Franklin's contributions to Freemasonry are symbolized in the fraternity's core emblems, representing moral rectitude, intellectual growth, and civic responsibility.
The square and compasses, representing morality and guidance, are emblematic of his approach to both personal and public life. His scientific experiments, such as his famous kite and key demonstration, reflect the Masonic value of seeking truth and understanding the mysteries of nature. Similarly, his diplomatic achievements, particularly the Treaty of Alliance with France, embody the principles of fraternity and cooperation. Franklin's Masonic apron, which he wore during his time in Paris, remains a cherished artifact of his Masonic legacy. Now displayed at the Musée de la Franc-Maçonnerie in Paris, the apron serves as a tangible reminder of Franklin's role in advancing the craft on both sides of the Atlantic. Franklin's alignment with Masonic principles is perhaps best understood through his philosophy of life.
Masonry is a science founded on morality and reason, and Franklin's life embodied these virtues to their fullest extent. Franklin lived the Masonic ideal of the moral architect, tirelessly working to improve both himself and the world around him.
His emphasis on self-improvement, civic engagement, and the betterment of society reflects the core teachings of the craft. Franklin often wrote about the importance of living plumb, square, and level. Count Mirabeau, the French revolutionary leader, delivered a powerful eulogy for Franklin in 1790, describing him as a philosopher who had advanced the rights of man and the sway of liberty. This tribute, delivered before the French National Assembly, underscored Franklin's impact as a statesman and as a Mason who embodied the ideals of Enlightenment and Freemasonry alike. Franklin's legacy within Freemasonry is reflected in the continued admiration and study of his life by Masons around the world. His example demonstrates how the principles of the craft, brotherhood, self-improvement, and service to humanity can be applied to address the challenges of any era. For modern Freemasons, Franklin remains an inspirational figure whose life serves as a blueprint for living in accordance with the highest ideals of the fraternity. His contributions to Masonic literature, his leadership in lodges, and his integration of Masonic values into his public and private life have made him one of the most celebrated figures in the history of Freemasonry. His writings and actions continue to inspire Masonic scholars and practitioners, offering a timeless model of how the teachings of the craft can guide individuals in their pursuit of knowledge, virtue, and societal progress. As we conclude this exploration of Benjamin Franklin's life as a Freemason, it becomes clear that his Masonic principles were not merely an adjunct to his identity, but a core framework through which he approached the world. Franklin's 6 decades of involvement in Freemasonry demonstrated the enduring power of its ideals: self-improvement, brotherhood, service, and the pursuit of enlightenment. These values informed every facet of his extraordinary life, from his work as a printer and inventor to his role as a diplomat and founding father.
Franklin's Masonic journey exemplifies how the craft's values can serve as a practical guide for personal and societal advancement.
Franklin's initiation into Freemasonry at St. John's Lodge in 1730 or 1731 marked the beginning of a lifelong commitment to the craft. His rapid rise to the position of Grand Master of the Provincial Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania underscored his organizational skills, leadership, and dedication. But Franklin's impact on Freemasonry was not confined to his titles. Through his printing of the Constitutions of the Freemasons, the first Masonic book published in America, he provided a vital resource for the fraternity and helped solidify its presence in the colonies. His writings in the Pennsylvania Gazette and his role in constructing the first Masonic building in America further demonstrated his commitment to spreading Masonic ideals. Franklin's life exemplified the alignment between Masonic values and public service. His contributions to civic infrastructure, such as libraries, fire companies, and hospitals, reflected the Masonic principle of working for the betterment of society. His diplomatic efforts in France, including his leadership in the Lodge of the Nine Sisters, highlighted his ability to use Masonic networks and principles to build alliances and foster unity. Even the founding documents of the United States, especially the Declaration of Independence, resonate with the Masonic ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Throughout his life, Franklin demonstrated how the moral teachings of Freemasonry could be translated into action. His commitment to self-discipline, charity, and intellectual growth was evident not only in his personal philosophy, as expressed in his 13 Virtues, but also in his public endeavors. Franklin lived the Masonic ideal of the moral architect, someone who seeks to construct a better world through reason, justice, and service to humanity. The honors Franklin received within the fraternity, such as his designation as an illustrious brother, reflect the high regard in which he was held by his Masonic peers. Yet Franklin's true legacy lies not in the titles he attained, but in the way he lived his life. His adherence to the principles of being plumb, square, and level in his dealings with others set a standard for Masons and non-Masons alike. As Count Mirabeau so eloquently eulogized him, Franklin was both a philosopher and a liberator, a man whose actions advanced the cause of liberty and enlightenment for all humanity. Franklin's legacy continues to inspire Freemasons worldwide. His life demonstrates how the principles of the craft can be applied to address the challenges of any age, from building communities to fostering international cooperation. For modern Masons, Franklin serves as a model of how to live with purpose and integrity, always striving to improve oneself and contribute to the greater good. Benjamin Franklin's life as a Freemason offers a timeless lesson: that the principles of Freemasonry are not just abstract ideals, but actionable guides for living a meaningful and impactful life. Franklin's example challenges us to embody the values of the craft in our own lives, to build not only ourselves, but also the world around us.
Let us emulate the virtues of Franklin, who lived as a Mason and died a sage.
As we reflect on his legacy, we are reminded that the true measure of a Mason lies not in titles or accolades, but in the enduring impact of their contributions to humanity. Brethren, may we all draw inspiration from Franklin's life and strive to emulate his wisdom, humility, and dedication to the principles of Freemasonry. Let his example guide us as we continue to labour in the quarries of life, building a better future for ourselves, our communities, and the world. So mote it be. For a deep dive into the history, philosophy, and traditions of Freemasonry, subscribe to From the Quarries. You will find hundreds of lectures, presentations, shorts, and other Masonic works written by Freemasons for Freemasons. Visit fromthequarries.com or YouTube at From the Quarries.